Holy Blossom Temple was the first synagogue of Toronto, founded in 1856. But you may not know that according to our temple archives, on the 5th of January 1868, a meeting was held in the residence of Louis Samuel Esquire. Our rose window is actually dedicated to the honor of that early leadership of Louis and Kate Samuel, Zichronam Livracha. What was the purpose of that meeting in their home? According to the minutes, it was, quote, to consider the propriety of establishing a Chevra Gelimus Chesed, the Toronto Hebrew Ladies Sick and Benevolent Society, and the vote was unanimous. It was decided that the monthly dues would be 25 cents, collected on the first Sunday of each Jewish month. It was decided that the members of the society would consist of, quote, Jewish ladies of good moral character, who must enjoy sound health and shall not be under 20 nor above 45 years of age. It was also established as an open society, in that the bylaws allowed for others to participate should they wish. It is written there, should there be any desirous to support the good works of this society and are hindered to become members on account of sex, age, bad health, or on account of any of these rules, they can do so by donations or by becoming honorary members. What did the Hebrew Ladies Sick Benevolent Society of Toronto do? They provided health care to the nascent Toronto Jewish community. They visited the sick and prepared the dead for burial. They collected fees for the community chest so that when someone fell ill and could no longer work, their basic needs of food and medicine and clean bed linens and doctor bills could be covered. Now, how many people were cared for in this way? According to the census taken in 1871, so just a few years later, there were only 157 Jewish souls in the young city of Toronto. Why do I share this document with you? It's more than 150 years old, and it seems like from so long ago and so far away, there was even a scale of fines should anyone neglect her duties. If an officer arrived more than 30 minutes late to the meeting, 15 cents. If a member at large is late, 10 cents. If a sister neglects her duties to visit the sick, 25 cents. If she neglects her duty as a collector of funds, 50 cents. And if she fails to watch over the gravely ill or the dead, a full $1. And if she refuses to assist in the sewing of the tachrichim, the shrouds for the dead, 25 cents. And if she refuses to assist in tahara, the ritual washing and dressing of the body for burial, 25 cents. Why do I share this with you on the holiest of nights? I find it to be a very moving and very powerful portal into the lives of ordinary Jews who first established this community, which is so extraordinary and so vibrant today. It is aleinu, it is upon us to maintain it today. So much of this holy work, so many of these acts of chesed have become professionalized today. Medical professionals, mental health care professionals, social workers, elder care professionals, physical therapists, psychologists, and so on. Thank God for them. Thank God for them. But if we didn't know it before the pandemic, we certainly know it now. We have become too dependent on the professionalization of such care, and the needs are far too great. We have structured a society today that allows us to forget that each of us is still duty-bound to the intimacy of the very human and delicate moments of life. Yes, in many ways, life was simpler in 1868, but life was also much harder, too. And nevertheless, the women and men of this fledgling congregation found the time and the resources to take care of one another, to see one another. Good people. To lead a religious life is countercultural. It always has been. A religious life provides us with the systems and structures to show up for one another. We live in an impatient world. Technology has trained us to be impatient. When online content consumption has increased by 30% in the last year alone, Torah and mitzvot come to train our eyes to slow down, to notice and to really see one another, and to see the wonder and the beauty of God's world. When a global pandemic has shaken us to our core so that we turn inward and away from others, even from those we love, Torah and mitzvot train our ears to listen intently to the child, to the teenager, to listen carefully, patiently to the elder. And when a politically polarized society tells us that those other guys are dangerous and threaten our way of life, Torah and mitzvot come to train our mouths to express basic kindness, to give people the benefit of the doubt simply because they are human beings created in the image of God. I was lucky enough to spend most of July in Jerusalem studying with the Hartman Institute as part of a 3-year fellowship that has now become a 4-year fellowship thanks to the pandemic. And Holy Blossom will soon be hosting Rabbi Daniel Hartman in November. I hope you'll come to hear from him. He is a leading voice, dedicating himself to bridging the growing gap between Israel and diaspora Jewry. And the very opening session Rabbi Hartman gave this summer was about the countercultural expectations of practice set by religious life. He suggests that the widespread secularization of the West too often gives cover for indifference. It is so easy to say, not my responsibility. But Deuteronomy chapter 22 demands that we do not ignore what is right in front of us. Lo tuchal lehit alem, you shall not be indifferent. The surprising context of this mitzvah is property law. There it is written, if you see your fellow Israelite's ox or sheep has gone astray, do not ignore it. You must take it back to your neighbor. And if your fellow Israelite does not live near you, or if you do not know who the owner is, you should bring the ox or the sheep into your home, and it shall remain with you until your neighbor comes to claim it, and then give it back. And you should do the same with another's donkey and with another's garment, and you should do the same with anything that your fellow loses and that you find, because you must not remain indifferent, even for something that seems small. Lo tuchal lehit alem. It seems simple. Don't ignore what you see. If you see something, do something. The ethics are not complicated. When we play it out, how and when and for how long, well, then it can get complicated and it can get challenging. But nevertheless, Torah puts it simply. We are duty-bound to deal with the situation that presents itself to us. And as I was listening to Rabbi Hartman, all I could think about was the blessing and the curse of technology, because today we see everything. We see the melting polar ice cap. We see the Uyghurs in China. We see the women in Iran. It isn't just one lost sheep, it's everything. And it can be overwhelming. So instead of turning off the screen, we turn ourselves off and we go numb. Lahit alem literally means to make another invisible. We are good at that. We've become expert in that. Someone I respect told me years ago that he doesn't answer the doorbell when someone unexpected comes to his door. Why should I? He said. I was so shocked. I was so taken aback. I didn't know how to respond. This was many years ago, but that hollow feeling still stays with me. And maybe this sermon is a delayed response to his question, why should I? Emmanuel Levinas, the French Jewish philosopher, says, to see the face of the other obligates you. You must see one another. Real damage was done during the pandemic when, out of necessity, we turned inward and we closed our doors and we went into lockdown. We did not see one another for too long a time. The authorities told us this was the way to stay healthy and it was the right thing to do, and it was for a time. But then the pandemic dragged on for too long. And then some of those same authorities began to tell us that cutting ourselves off from one another was, in fact, unhealthy. And so we have to unlearn now what the pandemic taught us. We have to retrain ourselves now to hear, to see, to respond to what is in front of us, to answer when someone is knocking on the door. Lo tuchal lehit'alem is a minimalist mitzvah. Thou shalt not be indifferent is a baseline mitzvah, a guardrail kind of mitzvah meant to protect us from losing our own humanity. It is designed to protect and reinforce the fabric of society, which can begin to fray all too easily, as we have seen. And if not us, then who? Is there anyone more capable of compassion? Is there anyone with a better track record of social change? Is there anyone with greater experience in being courageously countercultural? So I'd like to share with you tonight an example of how I am committing myself to being more responsive to some of the people right in front of me. You may recall a Rosh Hashanah sermon I gave a few years ago to honor people who have chosen to become Jewish and to thank non-Jewish parents who are committed to raising Jewish children. In the receiving line after that service, one congregant shook my hand and looked me in the eye and he said, "Rabbi, I didn't know it until now, but I think I've been waiting for that sermon for 40 years. It didn't take much. Just a few minutes of a public acknowledgement from this bima to praise his decades-long commitment. And it was enough for him to feel seen in a way he had not before. Since I have become senior rabbi, 8.5 years now, we've gotten more creative at welcoming and inclusion. The Holy Blossom Temple Board has expanded the definition of who is a member of our congregation. It now includes non-member spouses. We have provided a way for interfaith families, not only from Holy Blossom, but across the GTA, to be buried together in a Jewish cemetery, should they choose. But there is still one symbolic and significant way that we are seen to be indifferent to the needs of interfaith couples. Holy Blossom rabbis, for as long as I've been here, have invested time and attention to provide interfaith couples with the tools they need to create a Jewish home and to raise Jewish children. And so when couples come to us, we explain that the Reform rabbis of Greater Toronto do not officiate at interweddings. So we will be with you on every other day of your lives, but we won't be with you on your wedding day. And I try to explain this as sensitively as I can, but all too often, too many interfaith couples are hurt by this response. And then I never get a chance to welcome them into the congregation. All too often, I never get a chance to help them raise Jewish children. And all too often, I never get to help them find meaning in Jewish communal life. This is a personal loss for the couple, for the Jewish family, for the Jewish people, and yes, for me too. What do most interfaith couples want from a rabbi on their wedding day? I've come to understand that most of all, what they want is a public welcome, a public affirmation. And what do I want from them in advance of that day? I want time. I want time to get to know them, time to build relationships and attachment, time for them to collect Jewish learning and Jewish experiences. I personally believe that a rabbi's role is limited to officiating at life cycle rituals for Jews. I believe that a Jewish wedding with all of its Jewish symbols, all its Jewish prayer language, all its Jewish legal language, is for two Jews to marry one another. So where do we go from here? Not to be indifferent to the admirable intentions of the interfaith couples in our midst. 4 years ago, I led quietly the Reform rabbis of Greater Toronto in developing a model by which rabbis who choose may be there for interfaith couples on their wedding day. It goes like this. When a couple commits to a year of learning, to joining the congregation, to creating a Jewish home and raising Jewish children if they should be so blessed, then a rabbi can participate in their wedding day. How so? The rabbi is not the officiant. A judge or a justice of the peace officiates over a wedding and pronounces that marriage. And then the rabbi gets up from her seat to speak publicly to the couple, to honor their commitments, and to offer a blessing for their future. So far, very few local rabbis have chosen this path. It is a rabbinic decision. With the support of the pulpit committee and the support of my rabbinic and cantorial colleagues and with the support of the temple board, I share my intentions with you tonight. This is how I can show myself not to be indifferent to the people right in front of me. This is how I can say to young couples who are in the process of dreaming their future, I see you, I appreciate you, I want to be here for you, and I am grateful for your commitment to Jewish life and to the Jewish future. And if you are prepared to show up for the Jewish people, then I am prepared to show up for you. On this holy night, dedicated to our finest intentions, I pray this initiative will be well received. We are a very diverse congregation. We come from different backgrounds and different perspectives. I anticipate that for some of you, this step is too far. And I anticipate that for some of you, it is not far enough. I hope that I have earned your trust to know what is best for the whole of our community. I hope that you can appreciate that this isn't so simple when you feel the weight of the Jewish past, present, and future on your shoulders. I ask that you talk with me about it, that you talk with one another about it. In the coming months, let's sit together. And you can let me know your thoughts, your experiences, and I can share some of mine with you. God commands, sometimes demanding, sometimes pleading, Lo tuchal lehit'alem, you shall not be indifferent. You shall not make another feel invisible. How will we respond to this mitzvah in the year ahead? Tonight we confess how we have fallen short, how we have failed one another, how we have closed our eyes, closed our ears, our hearts, our hands to the ones right in front of us. How have we made it as if God's creation is invisible? And yet, we have also done a whole lot of good. Each of us individually, and certainly all of us as a collective, in spite of the roadblocks, the stumbling blocks, we have done a lot of good. Lest these deeds go unnoticed, lest we do not also remember and recount our merits before the throne of divine judgment, let me conclude with an inverted vidui, with a confession of our acts of kindness by Rabbi Evan Mafik. Avinu Malkeinu, we are not so arrogant and stubborn as to say before you, we are perfect. Yet we have tried to live our best. We have tried to change for the good. We acknowledge the times we have sought to live ethically and faithfully and lovingly. The times we let new people into our lives. The times we forgave. The times we spoke honestly when lying would have made us look better. The times we shared what we had with those who needed it. The times we gave without having even been asked. The times we did what was right instead of what was easy. The times we refused to gossip. The times we listened without judging. The times we cared for God's creation. The times we let others take credit. The times we let go of our anger, the times we did not give up, the times we opened doors instead of closing them, the times we did not separate ourselves from the community, the times we did not hide ourselves, the times we spoke words of kindness and words of justice, the times we brought peace into our homes, the times we apologized and meant it, the times we lived for something larger than ourselves. Amen.